what happens when you do something or something good is done for you and you and then do something good for the person who helped you? Now, we cover a lot of crazy stuff on the show, a lot of bad things happening. Like this whole episode so far I feel like has been bathed in tragedy. And a story like this should not be bathed in tragedy, or at least bad deeds, but it might actually be there, because what we're seeing here is a homeless veteran who helped a stranded woman says he can't get the GoFundMe cash from the couple. Now, if you remember the story, this came out a while ago, where a homeless veteran gave his last $20 to a woman who ran out of gas, and she started a GoFundMe to help this guy get on with his life. And it was a good story. It's a good feel-good story. It's a good human interest story. This is exactly why the kind of stuff we need. Well, the story's kind of taking a turn. Now, it says here, a homeless veteran in Philadelphia who made headlines last year after he used his last 20 to help a stranded stranger fill up her tank of gas says he has no access to the money raised on GoFundMe. Now, GoFundMe is investigating whether the money was mismanaged. And this is where we're coming into one of those, like, this to me is going to be like one of those watershed moments, because GoFundMe at this point, I can only really in some cases speculate that it's been used to funnel a lot of extra shit through. You know what I mean? And like right now, GoFundMe's predominant whole thing is all medical bills. And I know this because last year I went to my audience and asked for help to help get my cat Chance surgery. And people came through. It was really good. And the money was used for that. And I'm really, really, really thankful for it. But here's a little bit different of a scenario. Now, Johnny Bobbitt, I have to stop. His name is Johnny Bobbitt. No relation to John Bobbitt, who you might remember from the mid-90s when his ex-wife now, Lorena Bobbitt, cut his wang off while he was asleep and then threw it into a field. He just happens to share the same name. So maybe we could get him into porn after this for the return of Frankenpenis. Same name, different actor. Anyway, Johnny Bobbitt gained worldwide attention when he used his last 20 to fill up the tank of stranded motorist Kate McClure. McClure and her boyfriend Mark D'Amico started a GoFundMe in return, promising that Bobbitt would have a home. Bobbitt told the Philadelphia Inquirer that he can't use the $200,000 left out of the $400,000 that donors raised on GoFundMe, and he no longer has a camper or a car. McClure said that the couple did all they could to help Bobbitt. The couple and Bobbitt once had a warm relationship with him, but now they may be headed to court. Now, that to me, again, just off that first little bit there is not looking good for McClure and D'Amico, because this is the problem. All right, now out of the kindness of their heart, they wanted to help this guy out because he helped them out, right? They wanted to make it a feel good story. They wanted to help this guy get back on his feet, and we have like I think millions, like 8 million, 11 million, I don't know. There's a lot of millions homeless people in this country, right? And a lot of them are homeless veterans. And that's a big problem. That's a huge problem. And as a result of that, I think we should do more to help them out. So I'm totally on board with this whole thing being a reality. But what happens afterward? We never hear about what happens afterward. It's always looked at as being like, it's always looked at as being like happily ever after. Like the story originally was a happily ever after story, right? Stranded woman, run out of gas, homeless guy shows up, tosses her 20 spot, fills up her tank. She goes out there, she raises money for him. Everyone's happy, everyone's loving, everyone's caring. The world thinks a good thing happened, and then it's happily ever after, right? Cut the black, roll credits. But that's not the case here. Now we're getting the sequel to the story, and the sequel actually in many cases is more interesting than the original. Because now it says here, in an interview with the Inquirer last week, D'Amico says he controls the money and will start dispensing it when Bobbitt gets a job and stops using drugs. Saying here, giving him all the money is never going to happen. I'll burn it in front of him, he said, adding that giving an addict the money would be like giving him a loaded gun. Now, Bobbitt admitted to the paper that the couple once gave him $25,000 and he spent it on giving it to relatives and friends and some on drugs. Now, see, this is a big problem with this, right? You've got $400,000 raised to get this guy back on his feet, which, you know what, in the right area can buy you a house. It can pay off the mortgage. So all you're doing at that point is paying off the property taxes and the utilities, which really wouldn't be that much if he got just a basic job. He could be able to get that, it could get him into a rehab facility. It could get him off of drugs. It could help get him cleaned up. It's always a process, right? These things are always a process. But in this particular situation, he gave it to friends. He gave it to relatives. He blew it, essentially, is what I'm saying. That's what it says to me, that he blew it. You give an addict a lot of money, and what do? They blow it. because he can always go get more. This guy knows what it's like to be living at rock bottom. So blowing all that money, knowing that there's more for one, and two, if it all fails, he can just go back to doing what he's doing. I'm going to kind of go on the side of McClure and D'Amico here because they don't want him to blow it. They raised this money. They want to make sure that it's being used appropriately. They're kind of like in trust. They're holding it in trust of him right now. And they might be going to court over it, which should be very fascinating. Because if they don't have a verbal agreement over this, it's going to be a big issue. Now, Bobbitt questions the couple's motives and fears they may have squandered the money. He also questions if the couple has legal authority to deny him the funds, saying, I think it might be good intentions in the beginning, but with that amount of money, I think it became greed. And that is also, just to be fair, a solid theory. Now, what happens if he's keep in mind, let's look at this from like kind of just like an outward in perspective. He's homeless. Right? He still is homeless, apparently. He doesn't have a camper and a car anymore. So they got him a camper, they got him a car. He had a place to live, maybe not a house, but he had a place to stay, and he doesn't have that anymore. So that doesn't look good on him. But when the other people that are holding on to the money, they know he's going to be a fuck up. They know he's going to keep screwing up. They know he's not going to change anything. And as a result, they're like, well, we just don't ever have to give him the damn money because he's just going to end up, he's just going to end up blowing it all so we can spend it on whatever we need. And then go from there. Now, again, I don't know. I'm just merely saying that could be speculations here. Now, Bobbitt raised suspicions on how McClure, a receptionist, is now driving a new BMW. The couple said the car was paid for with their own money. GoFundMe said it would work to ensure Bobbitt receives the help he deserves and that the donor's intentions are honored. The couple insists that they did nothing wrong and they did all they could to help Bobbitt. Now, D'Amico, in a defiant active response here, says, write what you want. In the case of the paper, they're gonna, man. They're gonna. It's what's gonna happen. And the way I'm looking at it like this, ultimately, guys, is that we have a situation where you do have a guy who is showing it from just if you take their side of it, and even by his own admission, is terrible with money, right? So ultimately, the best thing here would be to get him into an apartment, get him cleaned up, get him a house or something, and then have that money in an escrow account or in an account that cannot be touched by him, that is simply for rent. And then, maybe he goes to them for like an allowance and everything else. But then there's the other argument of like, this is a veteran. This is a grown adult man. Let him do what he wants with the money. And it becomes this very odd debate. It becomes this very odd conversation to have, considering where we find ourselves in this situation. And so ultimately, I don't really know where to sit on this one. I don't know if he should have the money. I part of me wants him to have the money, but the other part of it too, I think the people are right to hold it. If they're not squandering it, if they're not screwing him over, if their intentions and their actions are pure and pure of heart and intent, then I think they're doing the right thing. But if it comes out that they bought that BMW with money that they raised for him, oh yeah, screw them, give him all the money and then F those people. But we don't know yet, and we're gonna have to wait to find out. But in the meantime, you never want to give an addict money to do with whatever. That's kind of where I stand on that one. I've known a lot of addicts in my day, and every time they get a little bit of money, it is gone, and they're back to the same exact place they were before. And I kind of see that happening here, so that's where I stand on that one.